Hello, welcome to Expat American. I am the Expat American standing in Moscow, Russia, outside a Mexican restaurant. Yes, Mexico, a country that's all the way over in the Americas on the other side of the world, does have Mexican restaurants in Russia. And there are only, believe it or not, according to census data, 300 Mexicans, not 300,000, 300 period, in Russia. And in this video, I talked to the one Mexican living in Russia who has his own YouTube channel. What are the differences between all these cultures? Watch right now. You ready, Dan?
Yeah, I think I'm ready.
Okay, very good. So guys, I'm here with the wild Siberian. He looks wild to me. We'll find out if he's Siberian or not. This guy is nowhere near me in Russia. A funny story, this is our first time speaking, our first recorded conversation, but Dan has been commenting on my channel ever since it started, like a lot. And I was like, who is this guy? He says he's a Mexican guy and he's living in Russia, which is really weird for me because I used to live in California and I was deep in the Mexican culture. And so years later, I'm over here now living in Russia with a completely new life. And then this guy is telling me he's from California. He's a Mexican guy. Great to finally talk to you. We guys, of course, have chatted some through text for the past month before we did this for posterity, our first conversation.
This is the conversation that I've had with someone who's the furthest for sure. Like live like this, 100%.
Uh-huh.
Because like you said, we couldn't be further apart right now. I mean, we could, but this is definitely Moscow, and I'm in Irkutsk Oblast, so that's very far.
Yes, and hopefully we'll meet in person one day. But until then, we have this, and this is the first interview where I feel like I'm talking to someone who's sort of a brother. So I feel like you kind of know me because we've been in the same culture.
Definitely, if you lived in California, like a lot of people, when they hear my accent or when they ask, like, how are you Mexican? Like, yeah, I'm a Mexican American from California. I think it takes someone from California to understand that we have people of different culture who are like American but have an accent like mine. Or, I mean, you're like from Florida too. So there's people who come from different backgrounds who are Americans but with different like ethnic origin. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate the fact that you kind of better than mostly anybody in the YouTube community would understand who I am.
Well, that brings me to something that I don't think I had in my notes, but this is what I'm wondering, right? Because you and I have both been living in Russia for over a year now, right?
Yeah,
For you? Yeah, so for
yeah,
me, a year and a half. Um, and I see that the West is having trouble. And I was raised, I'm going to be 49 soon. So I was born in 74 and I grew up in America. And this idea is pressed on you that it's a melting pot and it's multicultural. And I'm like, yeah, sure, that's great. It's multicultural. I love it. I'm all for it. And I have a very mixed family. Three of my sisters are Chinese. They're adopted. My first wife was Mexican. My first two kids are Mexican. The city I grew up in is like 50% black. I
yeah.
have my whole life I've been around all sorts of races, and I've been like, yeah, this is great. Now I'm in Russia, and Russia also has lots of races, but I think on my side, like in Moscow, it's something like 85% Slavic. Coming here, you know it too. It's like, wow, this country is not the bad guy place. It's a cool place, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And then we look at the West, and the West is having trouble. It seems to be going through a cultural collapse. And I wonder sometimes, well, because you don't want to be racist. You're like, don't be racist, don't be racist. And I feel like I can freely talk about it to an extent because my family is so mixed. Um, and so it's like, is multicultural what we want to be pushing? Is that the thing, or is it just is it multiracial, which is cool? Because perhaps Russia is multiracial, but their primary culture, let's say, is one culture
Yeah,
of Russian, kind of
definitely.
like you're Russian first. And I wonder
Yeah.
if pushing this idea of we're multicultural, let's say in the West, is destructive to a degree.
I think it's much different in Russia than it is in the United States in the sense that in America we self-segregate. So when I'm saying that I'm a Mexican American, I'm basically living in a community that is a majority of one race. And you would think that you're in another country. And being from Los Angeles too, like if you cross a street, you're in a completely different, or like they have like little Tokyo, little like Chinatown and stuff like that. When I came to Russia, I live in Irkutsk Oblast, so I'm relatively close to Buryatia. Like I live next to other ethnic groups who are we live together. Like my neighbors are from Azerbaijan and uh, former Soviet states, but we all live in the same place, and that was shocking to me
Mm.
because I had never seen so many different people. But like you said, it's like first of all they're Russians, and then they're whatever else they are. Where in America, first we are what we are, and then we claim the American, like the American heritage or American citizenship, and it's sad in my opinion because it always kind of angered me because when my mom came to America and I came with her. Like I was born in America, but I was raised in Mexico, and she sent me back to the United States. I was like an anchor baby,
Oh,
politically.
okay.
Like, so when I went to the United States, I was like, okay, so now we're in the United States. I'm not waving the Mexican flag and causing problems. In America, it's like that. People try to impose their everything on the American culture, where in Russia, it's totally opposite. Russia kind of it's in the people's hearts in a way. I see it here. I don't want to sound like a crazy person, but you can tell the community is built different around this one idea that is Russia.
I don't know. I'll keep doing videos and sort it out. Um,
Yeah,
but I mean, I don't want to say multiculturalism is wrong, but I think maybe Russia has figured it out for now. The culture of the country is on the street is the number one culture, and then you can have your own more personal, subculture within your larger family group. Let's say my family is members are different races, but we all have the same culture of, I don't know, biblical principles, whether we know it or not. Uh, like I've said before, German fairy tales, British customs, French food. We're all kind of pointed in the same direction, culture-wise,
yeah.
even though we're different races. Anyway,
I think it's easier here for just to close the topic for myself. I think it's easier in Russia to kind of assimilate to the Russian way.
mhm.
It's everywhere. Everywhere I go, if I'm not living in the Russian style, then I'm not saying you can't exist, but it's a better experience when you assimilate, and it's a very easy process because it's not really forced on you. And in America, you can choose not to assimilate, but that just causes disruption in the society, in my opinion. Like I said, you self-segregate, and that leads to problems.
Mm, okay. Well, my first question is usually, who are you? And we sort of already know that. So I guess I would say, Dan, who else are you?
I'm a Marine veteran of Afghanistan war. I'm a
Right.
traveler who enjoys new things. Um, I'm just a lover of different cultures, and right now, I'm a man who's in Russia living his best life.
I do find it interesting when I speak to Americans who are veterans who are living in Russia, because I guess I had thought that perhaps for security reasons, America and Russia would not let in, they would not approve visas for people that had served in their military.
Yeah, I was nervous about it,
So
but
that
it's
is a possibility, or it's just not a
well,
thing.
when I got my visa, because it asks you like, were you involved in any wars and stuff like this? And when I was filling it out, I was really nervous that I was get denied. So I called the visa center and I said, "Hey, is it going to be a problem that I fought in the Afghanistan war and I've got combat action? I specialist like in demolition." And the lady kind of laughed. She said, "Oh no, don't worry. We went to war there too." And I said, "Oh, okay." And then 2 weeks later, 2 weeks later, she called me. She said, "Okay, everything's good. It was approved, and you'll get it in the mail." So, like, the consulate obviously knew I was a veteran, and coming in at entry point, very detailed questionnaire and stuff. And you just say the truth. There's no problem. You go in, and that's it. So, there's nothing to be nervous about. Definitely, like now that I went through that, I believe that it is completely safe because they could have denied me entry, knowing that I'm a military man and knowing the stuff that's going on right now. You kind of feel like there's no way they let me in, but they did.
That makes you wonder, why did you come here? Because I know Mexicans in California. I know that you probably have a loving family community there,
Yeah.
unless you're like a teenager who's going through a crazy rebellious time, and you served your country, and so you have that pride as well. So why are you now? I guess like you're in your 30s living in Russia.
When I decided to come to Russia was like in 2019. Towards the end, like I basically had planned a trip to Siberia. I told my family, I said, "Hey, you know what? I want to go to a cold place. I live in California. I was in Afghanistan. It was always hot. My plans to come to Russia were so old, and the close downs happened, and it ruined my plans. So there was no way of happening. And when the conflict started, I was like, I'm never gonna get a chance to do my dream of going somewhere cold, and I want to be in Siberia. I didn't care about Russia. Like the idea, the mystic idea of Siberia is what captivated me. And I know obviously Siberia is Russia, but nothing about Russia. I knew nothing. I just wanted to experience Siberia. And I came in April 2022, which is probably similar to when you came.
Mhm.
It was similar timing, and I
Yeah, it
never
was
planned on
February
staying.
2022. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know that in like the 20 early 2022, it was a little bit nobody knew how to come in. Nobody even knew if the flights were going to work. So I said, I'm going to just go. Um, and my ticket was for like 2 months. I had a very good job in California, and then I extended my stay. And then finally, I just decided to stay. This was not planned. I knew nothing about Russia. And that's probably why I had such a hard time in the beginning because I came with a certain amount of money. I came with no knowledge of the Russian language, no knowledge of the Russian culture. So the reason why I came, I have no reason why I came, but I know why I stayed, which is for just I love Lake Baikal, I love the nature and the culture here. Society is what attracted me. So I had no intentions of coming to stay. As I just know I stayed because of these things.
And because of Ksenia.
Yeah, well, I met her. See, the thing about Ksenia is I don't mention her because I don't mention her why I stayed as her being a reason because a lot of people think that a woman will make a man stay in a certain place, but I wouldn't love myself if I didn't choose to stay without love. You know what I'm saying? I don't want it to be as a thing that I made for a woman because
Right.
deep down inside my heart, I would have done it for myself because I love myself enough to know that this place was beautiful. Ksenia just is the cherry on top. It is a
Right.
beautiful part of my story. She's a great woman. And I mean, that's like a private thing when you speak about women. And if she can tell her story, but my story is, of course, I met her, and she's a beautiful person. But mostly, I stayed because of society and what I find here.
Yeah, I like the video you guys did. I don't know, maybe a few weeks ago, where you covered how you decide. I think you showed a recording of you telling her you're not going to leave.
Yeah,
Um, that was very sweet, and even telling it to you now, it feels like my eyes want to water up.
I get
So,
goosebumps.
so if I haven't said it yet, this guy has his own YouTube channel. So I guess I'll use this opportunity to tell you guys to go subscribe. The link will be below. But so Dan, then what do you think are Russia's best qualities? Not like because I could say what's your favorite part about Russia, and you could say Taramuk. That's not what I mean. Like on a deeper level, what do you think are Russia's best qualities?
Well, I used to get bothered when people didn't smile at me because I'm very friendly. Like a Mexican is always happy and fiestas time. But I think one of the best qualities is that when you find a friend, he's like your
Mhm,
real friend. When people
mhm,
start saying hello to you, it's because you've kind of been brought into their circle, into the community. And I
mhm.
felt it, when I go fishing and stuff like that. Usually men will not talk with me or even say hello. But after 1 year of going fishing and like kind of helping people knowing where to fish, I think that is one of the greatest qualities a country or a society at the smallest can have is being real, being truthful. And yeah, the friendship that you get here is very real, and you can tell it apart from some friendship that you would have in another country. The ability of having different groups of people, I love that. I love seeing different types of people. Like the people who sell fruits here are different than the people who sell the potatoes in the street. Like like salam alaikum. I say that every day because if I buy potatoes, I have to go buy them from a woman from an ex-Soviet country, and I love that there's no problem amongst us. Mostly, it's just about society.
So even in your low populated area, it feels multicultural. It sounds like.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Russians are good at having close bonds with each other. I mean, I thought of myself as someone who would have close bonds with people just in general before I knew deeply about Russia. But when I married my Russian wife, um, she, very quickly in the marriage, she was talking to me a lot and for a long time and would keep me up talking late at night. And at first I was like, gosh, this is a lot, And I remember thinking, I thought I was deep. I thought I was really close to people. But this woman, it's another level of really talking and getting to know each other. And then I come over here to live finally, like 9 years later. And it seems like it's that way with everybody. I'm not talking about bad about other countries, but Russians do seem to do well with really getting to know you, and that's separate from being friendly on the street, of course, as I've talked about before.
Yeah, there's
Um,
levels.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. They gotta trust you and get to know you, but that will actually happen. Um, Whereas in some countries, it's a bit stiff and there's a smile, but there's not a lot of depth
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
relationship.
And you
Um,
only know that until you come to Russia, that those types of people, like, you know the difference between the friendships here and the friendships in your home country. Like, almost immediately after you make your first friend in Russia, you say,
mhm,
"Wow, I guess this is like another type of friendship." In my opinion, I
right.
finally made my first friend like 3 weeks ago, like a real friend, and this is after a year and some months of living in Russia. To the point where we go fishing together, we make shashlik and stuff like this, and it took me a whole year to build the confidence and that the bond between us. And it's the world means the world to me. So I know what you're saying. Like, when they want to know more about you and they tell you more about themselves, it's a really nice feeling.
So we are learning from Russians how to have deep, meaningful friendships. And I guess what that means, Dan, is you're not going to be my friend because I'm not a Russian and you're not a Russian. We won't know what to do with each other. So I was hopeful you'd come here one day to my city and you'd be my new buddy. But
If I go to Moscow and then you come to Baikal, then I think it's enough merit in that, truly. Because they have always asked me like, "Hey, do you know like the Russian spirit, something like this? Like, what do you think about the Russian spirit?"
mhm,
Um, and I'm always thinking about it when I'm fishing or where I'm out in town, and I think to myself like, I think I'm pretty this Russian spirit. Like, I think I've assimilated pretty well. The people are no different than I. Like, I can do what they do,
mhm,
and I don't think they get offended when I try my best to brave the winters, to brave the different bad, like the bad roads or society itself. Like, we all go through the same thing, and I'm sure it
mhm.
happens in Moscow as well. Like, you have to go through the different hurdles in life, and they basically those hurdles funnel you in into becoming, I'm gonna say, like an honorary Russian, because I will never be just Russian, but I can
Mhm.
be a Mexican American Russian, and I believe that in my heart. So I think we can be friends. You come to Baikal after I go to Moscow, I show you the shores, and there's no problem. There's no
Dude, I
problem.
would love to go to Baikal because I grew up 7 miles from the Georgia border, the state
Yeah,
in the U.S. And that state has like I think it has like the most national parks in the U.S. And so I spent my youth and most of my life camping and climbing mountains and just doing all sorts of outdoorsy stuff. And so now here I am having New York style living in Moscow for a year and a half. And I don't, yeah, I guess I do have one proper pair of boots. But yeah, I'm a country person originally, but
yeah.
I've been swished into being a city person. So I would love to go to Baikal. I mean, I've seen the pictures, I've seen some videos, I've seen your videos on your channel of Baikal, and it's incredible. And just the idea that it is, I believe, the largest body of fresh water, right?
Yes, yes. It is the
It's not
oldest
so
lake.
wide on top, but it's super deep, right?
Yeah. It's the
Yeah.
deepest lake in the world, and it's the oldest lake in the world, and so because of its depth, it has the largest amount of volume. A lot of people like to say, "Oh, but it's not the biggest in area," but you can put a little bit of water on top of a flat surface and say that's the biggest lake, but Baikal is enormous depth-wise, and it is, yeah, 20% of the world's fresh water.
Now, do you see across it since it has the advantage of not being too wide?
Yes, you can see clear across it in some areas. I believe when you go on the train or around its edge, you can see for many, many miles and many, many kilometers actually. The thing about Lake Baikal is that because it is constantly growing, the mountains on the side are so big, and so you can see the mountains on the other side. And yeah,
Oh,
you can see
nice.
straight across it wide, but long ways there's no way. It's like I don't
What's
know how
really
many hundred.
cool is when you see people on it in winter and it's all frozen and you just see all the cracks going deep into the ice. It's not like you're gonna fall through, guys, because the ice is super thick,
Yeah,
but it's all cracked and you can just see the dimensions through the water. It's just amazing. And
you
there are
have
videos
to.
of some people ice skating on it and stuff. So
If you want to come, please do come at least one time in your life in winter. I'm going to say right now, Lake Baikal is in many people's eyes can be any other lake in summer. You go to the shores and whatever, whatever. But in winter, Baikal is the king of all lakes because, like you said, the thickness of the ice, and when you ice skate on it, you hear like Star Wars, and you just
really?
know. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps just in remembering about it. In my videos, I made a video of myself like getting pulled by a buhanka on the ice. People drive on
Uh-huh.
this lake. I don't think that there's another lake this big that freezes over completely for many months out of the year. It is a magical time in winter. I suggest you come in winter one time in your life.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm learning about most of Russia is that because they have such strong winters, it's almost like living in Moscow here. Like I'm in one place for about 6 months when it's summertime, and then I'm in a completely different feeling and looking place for winter, which is kind of nice because in Florida and California too,
Yeah.
it's pretty much the same season year round. I mean, there's really no winter,
No.
to speak of. I mean, maybe for 3 weeks it's a bit cold, whereas here in Moscow, maybe for 3 weeks it's a bit hot. Like right now, it's a bit hot, but we have some air conditioning units, and it's over so fast. Well, how about for you? Is the temperature the same over there? Or is it super cold and then just a little bit hot, or does it get hot in Siberia? I've heard it gets hot in Siberia.
This year, summer lasted like a week or two. Like honestly, it was not a lot because it was very, very cold. It stopped snowing maybe like in April or May, like late May. I still had snow. I think some of my
Mhm.
videos are like in May and it's snowing, but it gets very cold. I think it gets just as cold in Moscow, but sometimes we had like -40 with wind chills, like -50s. It feels like horrible. Um, Winter lasts from like October. Everything starts freezing, and then it kind of the coldest month is probably January. Then the snow doesn't stop, but the summer gets so hot. Some days it's miserable because your body gets used to being like uh 10 degrees to 15. How many is like do I talk in Fahrenheit or Celsius? What do you think would be the best? Oh
I'm
man.
trying to switch over. I'm trying to use the measurements that Russia uses. It'll just make my
Uh,
life easier,
yeah,
but it's,
I've
it's
totally
difficult.
converted. So I'm gonna talk in Fahrenheit, I think, because I don't know the Fahrenheit temperature anymore. But the truth is, we've gotten used to like 30 degrees to 50 degrees in the beginning of the year, just constant cold. So when the summer hits in July and it's 80 to 90 degrees, you're like, Jesus, this is too much. I can't take it anymore. Anything
Mhm.
over 80, I'm done.
Wow. So I think Americans think of Siberia as a cold place, but it's
Oh no.
actually intensely cold in winter and then intensely hot in summer. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. And because
So
of
it's
your
both.
body, yeah, it gets to both. And because you get used to one and then the other comes, it's a little bit more miserable. It kind of makes things worse.
And how far away are you from Lake Baikal?
Well, if there wasn't like these buildings here, I could probably see it. I'm like 5 minutes by car
Oh,
and ride my
wow.
bike to it. Yeah, it's very close.
So it's like you're like in a beach town.
Yeah, that's so funny you say it. It's basically a beach town, yeah, because the town is at the shores of it. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Because I was in Florida, and you're like 40 minutes from the beach, longer if you want to go to a specific beach, because all beaches are different.
Oh
Um,
no, I get there like in 5 minutes. Anywhere around the lake here in 5 minutes in a car. Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Well, what do you miss about your Mexican culture, your Mexican American culture? I'm sure there are things you miss about that.
Yeah. Well, mostly I miss my mother because in Mexican culture, like a woman is the head of the house, and I have not seen my mother in a long time. I miss my mother. I miss just the food. I guess that's an obvious answer. There's no
Mhm,
tortillas in Russia. It's very hard to find a real tortilla, and I
mhm,
think it's even impossible to
right,
find a corn tortilla. So I miss that.
mhm,
But that's about
right.
it. Just food and my family.
Would you say the woman is the head of the household in Russia as well?
I don't. Unfortunately, like Xenia's mother is not in. She passed away, so I can't have that experience, but Ksenia herself, because we live her father and myself together.
Mhm.
She's definitely tells me what to do. Tells me what we're gonna do, like
Careful,
clothes
quiet. There's
wise.
Russians listening. No,
No,
go ahead.
I think I think it's easier for me to adjust to her attitude. It could be different for every household, but out of respect and honor for her, there's a lot of things that she decides, and I like that because she's obviously the native.
Mhm.
She's the head of this household.
The man and the woman need to have their roles. The way Sveta and I try to divide it up is we say, outside the house, I'm the boss. Inside the
Yeah,
house, you're the boss.
yeah, that's
So,
beautiful. Eh, I never
uh,
said that, by the way, but that's exactly how it is for us, and it's just
mhm,
beautiful how you said it because in Russia, when I first got here and I started going out with her, she would tell me some things outside, and I would ask like, "Why do you want me to do it?" She says, "Because you're the man," and it's a
mhm,
nice feeling to have a woman tell you, "You have to do it because you're the man." That's not
mhm.
something you would hear in America.
Exactly, exactly. That's something like from 1950s America, and
Yeah,
it's kind of comforting and heartwarming to hear it here, to come here and to have women, all over the place say, no, you're the man, you do this for me,
yeah.
and it's not an insult to them. They're glad that I have my role and they have theirs. And you started a YouTube channel, and it seems like it's going well, and you've got your Russian lady friend, and you're living in basically a beach town. What
Mhm.
else do you have planned for the rest of your life?
Well, I'm going back to the United States in November because I'm going to get my like a marriage license. Ksenia and I are
Oh,
gonna get married next year, and I'm saving up a little bit to buy a nice house here in Sludanka. This is my town where I live, and my plans are to try to raise a family, be a good person, and just give to my community through like charity, through being able to, with the difference between America and Russia, there's some things that are better in some place. So like something that I've learned growing up in the United States is that when something's broken, you can kind of work together and fix it. There's things that I can fix in my town that are being neglected, if that makes any sense. And I just
mhm.
want to be a good person in my town. And if there's a basketball court that I could fix for the kids, or if there's a field that I can give money towards, like mowing the lawn or mowing it myself, I want to be a good person in my community. That's all I have
Wow.
planned. Just raise a family and be a good person. And I plan on living here. I plan obviously in vacationing, but in my life, I want it to be here, and I want
Mhm.
to be the best person I could be so that my community can reflect on it, and the next generation, like my children, could be good people, and they can inspire others to be good people. That's all I want.
How's Russian language coming along for
It's really hard. My woman speaks too much good English. That's the problem.
you? So
That's
do
the
you
truth.
take lessons, or you're just kind of winging it and just doing your best?
When I hear Russian now in conversation, I get a lot of it.
Mhm.
I want a real life teacher in person, like I can't learn on like a video talk. For some reason, I just cannot do it. Because the way I learned, like in Germany when I lived there, I had to learn German. So I learned in person in class and writing it. So that's what I want to do. I want to find a real life teacher who can teach me the writing and the speaking in person so I can see their mouth movement or the way they put their tongue. There's a lot of
Mhm.
sounds that I cannot produce. So it's a very
Mhm.
hard language to learn, I
So you
guess.
learn German.
Yeah, like I had to learn enough to work. So I haven't been in Germany like in 8 years, so I haven't used it. But my German is enough to say where I'm from, what I want, what do I need. Yeah,
Wow. Well, you should keep up with it, man. You should go on Duolingo on your phone and just practice German from time to time. So
yeah. Funny enough, I the first time I communicated with Ksenia's father was in German. For some reason, he learned it back in the 50s or 60s, and we communicated with small German words. So yeah, it's yeah
wow.
definitely useful.
Well, man, this has been a great talk. I think we should stop it now because you're hoping to come to Moscow, and I
Yeah,
want to have something to talk about to do a video with you in person when you come.
yeah. Well,
Um,
thank you.
and guys, we're going to hang up and I'm going to go do the same thing on his channel, and he's going to interview me. And I told him I've been interviewed a few times, so the pressure is on. He's got to ask me different questions and get me to give different answers. Otherwise, I will refuse to do the interview. And he agreed that he will do the interview and it'll be different. Um, but thanks so much, Dan. And guys, his YouTube channel is in the link below or on the screen. And be sure and check that out. So he's doing what I'm doing, but it's just in a different part of Russia, not in a big city. So it's cool to see the other side of Russia. Again, I'm doing another interview at a desk. This time I'm at Alex's desk, not my own. Actually, I don't have a desk. Senya, is that how you say her name?
Yeah, Ksenia. I never say it right, by the way.
Ksenia. So it's like a soft K.
Yeah, it's off. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Ksenia. Ksenia. Gotcha. I've got my questions ready, and this is going to be fun. I don't want to talk too much before we get into the actual interview.